Hi, welcome to Author Life. I am Luke T. Barnett. This is the show where you get to know your authors and you get to hear them geek out about their books, and in Justin's case, a lot of books. Uh, I'm here with Justin Sloan, and he is a very, very, very prolific author, and he's written a lot of books. I'm just scrolling through them on your Amazon page, and there's just a ton of these. I don't know how many of these are co-authored, but that's a lot of books, man. You write a lot.
Co-authored. So yeah, let's see. Co-authored. There was the Syndicate Wars series with George and Kyle.
That's a lot of books, man.
And then the ones with Anderley, which are me. But yeah, co-authored. So yeah. I just co-authored. There was this weird thing. Okay, sorry. I did this thing where I opened up the YouTube. I always do this when I'm doing these chats because sometimes the chats show up on the YouTube channel, but not on the main channel for me to see.
Yeah,
I can hear myself talk. So anyway, back to it.
You know how to pop that up, right?
What's the chat?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about technology. I'm old school.
I only know stuff because I've asked other people. No, if you go to the actual YouTube page of the video, and on the right there's the chat.
Yeah.
And to the right of that, there's 3 dots. If you click those 3 dots, the menu comes down and it says pop out chat. You click that and it pops into its own window, so you can close the actual browser window.
Oh, interesting. I'll figure it out later. If I don't know. Oh yeah,
there's nobody in there anyway.
Yeah, I just shared to a couple people, so we'll see if anybody hops in. They're all late, show up late usually anyway. So
I shared it with the keystroke guys, but I only shared it yesterday, so I don't know. They don't usually show up, but hopefully they do.
Yeah.
So your latest book is Shadow Mystic. Is it Shadow Mystic or is it Sepulcharian Shadow Mystic?
No, so it's Shadow Mystic. So it's in the Sepulcharian universe with the Syndicate Wars and a bunch of other books. And so most of the books that are in that universe, we've put that at the top. We're debating if we want to keep doing that because originally that was an idea we started with the Syndicate Wars books, the 5 books in that series. And that was kind of the kickoff, and those were doing really well. They were like #1 in one of the sci-fi categories for like 3 months going. And so we thought that if we branded all these other ones into the same universe, that would be great. But then after the 3-month mark, they kind of died off. And so then it was like, well, at this point, I'm wondering, is it still worth making that the branding thing, or will people just get confused and be like, what's Sepulcharian? And just move on, because I don't know. Or sometimes it feels overwhelming if there's too many books in a series and they feel like, oh, I have to read all of those. Man, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Sometimes you feel overwhelmed, intimidated.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that about Galaxy's Edge. I've started reading. I'm on the last book, I think. I'm in the audiobooks, so I bundle them. But I'm almost to the point where like, okay, there's like a whole bunch more, extra stuff outside of the main series.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not sure if I want to read those because I think I've just kind of had my fill of Galaxy's Edge. Not that it's a bad series, it's an awesome series. But, you get run down over something over time, so.
Yeah. And sometimes you just don't even want to read the original series because it just feels like you have to read everything else if you read any of it. And that's what I've learned from some people, because I tend to do that where I connect a lot of series and
Yeah, I like connecting things. I'm writing an epic fantasy series, and actually, I meant to mention this at the beginning of the show. So Justin Sloan, for those who are watching, is one of the guys who really helped me get started in self-publishing. And if it weren't for him, I wouldn't know a lot of stuff that I do. Because of your podcast. Wow, it's been so long since I listened to it.
Yeah.
Not self-publishing answers was Nick Thacker's. Yours was.
I was on there too. So Nick Thacker, me and Kevin joined him on SPA, and then I did the creative writing career with Kevin and Stefan. And it's still online, but we haven't done an episode in who knows how long at this point, 6 months or something. It's been a while.
Yeah, well, it was helpful for me. When I was trying to decide whether to go self-publishing or traditional, I was like, my wife was listening to a bunch of podcasts. I thought, I could look up a podcast. So I typed in creative writing, and the first one was just this weird guy just talking all weird, and I didn't like it. But then I found creative writing. I'm like, okay, this sounds good, and it was just like a flood of information. It's like, oh, this is so helpful.
Yeah, great. I'm glad to hear it. And then we also had the episodes that focus on screenwriting and video game writing, and so we're trying to cover that whole the whole career side of it. If you want to be a creative writer full time, a lot of people feel like book writing isn't the way to go because a lot of people don't make money at it. A lot of people do nowadays, which is awesome. But video games is obviously a clear way you can go. It's very competitive and hard to get into, and of course screenwriting as well. But yeah, I think we did a good job of bringing some great interviewees on there and talking with them. And I hope I might actually get it going again someday. Right now, as you know, we're moving to LA, and so if I do, I might rebrand it a little bit to focus more on the LA thing, or I might just start a new one and focus on screenwriting. But finding a good edge on that, and maybe working with a new partner who's also focused on the same career ambitions.
Yeah, that makes sense. You think you might hook up with Stepan again, since he's in
it? Well, he's a busy man, so it'd be optimal to hook up with somebody who is also just full-time writing, and then that way we kind of just like take maybe we take 2 hours a week where we brainstorm ideas together or something, and then spend an hour doing the podcast. Or I don't know. I might not even do it. It's still like one of these debating things because, as you know, you've been doing it now. It takes up a lot more time than you think it would. Not just because you're interviewing people and talking with them, but you have to figure out who to interview. And then for me, it's just a shift in my brain. So I'll be all ready and I'll get all amped up. And then for like a half hour before, I can't really focus. And then for like an hour afterwards, I just can't get back in the zone. So I'm taking up too much of my writing time. And I already, 3 kids and a family and all these other things going on. It's like if you're already losing 3 or 4 hours a week just to a podcast, that's like sometimes half of your writing time, depending on the week and what else is going on.
So, that's true. Yeah, it's hard to balance that. I started doing this because I wanted to hook up with other authors because I have trouble finding other authors in my area, and also to give lesser known authors a kind of a boost to their books. Opportunity to do that. I mean, obviously, it's not going to give much of a boost right now because I'm pretty new. But my hope is as it grows to be able to do that, but also to learn from people like you, people like Kevin, who I interviewed before, the Galaxy's Edge guys. Learn what they did as far as craft and what their lives look like. Because I have a full-time job, so trying to find time to write and balance writing and stuff like that, it's really tricky. So interviewing people that have been there, whether they're still there or not, is just helpful for me.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've been writing full-time for a while.
2.5 years, I think, ish.
So what's that look like?
What's that?
I'm sorry. I just asked what your day looks like for as far as writing goes.
Well, so first of all, it's amazing. It's gotta love the life. Yeah, the dream is.
Yeah.
People talk about like this and this doesn't get you happiness. Screw that. It definitely gets you happiness. They're idiots, or they just shouldn't be writing in the first place or doing whatever they think that it's going to bring them happiness. But if you really have something that you enjoy and then you can make it your full-time gig, it's amazing. Of course, that said, there's the anxiety and the stress that all comes from it, and then my wife isn't working right now, so there's that. And we have a family of 3, and we live in the Bay Area. So there's all these aspects that you're like, wow, if I don't perform, I'm kind of screwed. So I gotta step up here, and so there's that. And then there's also the balance of with 3 kids. Like my whole thing is I was raised on Disney movies, so I have this inherent want to be an amazing dad, and like this striving force within me to try to be a better person in every way possible. And so whenever there's an opportunity to go on a field trip with my kids or do all these things, like I got to do it. I'm not going to be this person who missed out on their childhood and then 20 years later was like, oh, but look, I wrote some cool books. What can freaking do? So there's all that going on, which is like always the constant struggle, like finding that balance of, yes, I'm full-time, which means I can do all these things with the kids. And my son's always like, do I have to go to school? And I'm in my back of my brain, I'm like, does he have to? I could just hang out with him and have fun. People do that. You just take him to Disneyland. Let's just have a good time. But then, of course, the smart side of me says, but you got to write some books. Otherwise, you can't pay for that trip to Disneyland. And you might have to go back and get a crappy job and answer to a horrible boss or, and I've lucked out on having some awesome bosses. So that's great. But yeah, so basically my day is I wake up at like 3. I get my coffee, I write until the kids wake up, which is usually around 6-ish. And and then I take him to school, all that stuff, get him ready, get back to around. It takes a long time because we got three, and they're going to three different schools. We got to drive them over.
Oh, yay.
So yeah, so 9:30 is when I finally get back to the desk again. So like from 6 to 9:30, I'm dealing with that, and then I get to write all day until I start picking them up at around 4:30, 4:35, somewhere in that zone. So it's not as much time as I would like to be. That's why I get up at 3, and then I try to take a break throughout the day so that my brain can reset itself. So I try to do like either an hour workout, or sometimes I'll split it up into like 3 20-minute sessions or something, so that I'm like doing push-ups and sit-ups and exercise bike and things like that. Sometimes I'll be like reading a screenplay or watching a movie while I'm doing those things. So I'm still doing other things throughout the day, trying to get the brain to not burn out, because sitting around for 2.5 years and just writing like 8 hours a day, maybe some people are great at that, but for me, I need a little bit something else moving around in my brain so that I can come up with new ideas and make the stories fun and not just boilerplate, silliness. And then the evening, I'm basically just done. So I pick up the kids, we get dinner, we go to sleep, and they're like at 8 o'clock or 9. I'm like, and then just hit the bed. It's over. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I totally get that. I write for like an hour in the morning, but like I think one day I was able to write for like 2 or 3 hours. Yeah. And I was just like, oh. Once I hit that, like,
yeah, there's I wish I was more productive at that time of day, but so sometimes I'll be writing straight for that whole time. Like I could wake up and just boom. But a lot of times that's where I'll like try to write for a little bit, realize it's not working, and then I'll do some of my editing that I need to do, or I'll do some whatever else, also marketing, look at my ads or something like that. So depending on how the brain works, then I'll try to like set a limit of how long I do that for, and then jump back and try to write some more. Because your brain isn't always working when exactly you want it to be working.
Yeah, well, you think about a 9-to-5 job, you're not just doing one single task all day long. I mean, unless you're working in a factory or something like that.
Right.
It's just focus like that.
Yeah. For sure.
So you were talking about getting burnt out and stuff like that, but we were talking before the show that you're considering branching out to other things. Or is that going to be and that's why you're moving to LA? Is that what going to be screenwriting that you're going to be doing, or what do you think? What are you planning on doing there?
Yeah, a few things. So we recently. We haven't had a press conference. We can't give details on this yet, but we kind of sold something, which was cool on the screenwriting side. Yeah, so pretty exciting. Fingers crossed on that becoming huge. Yeah. We'll see what happens. And then the acting thing. I used to do acting back when I was in the Marines. I was in the Marines from '99 to 2004, and my boss at the time was an activated reservist who was like, "Yeah, just go audition for stuff." And we're like, "But we're not super attractive. We don't look like Brad Pitt." He's like, "Dude, it's movies. They need every shape and size and character. Like you just do it, and when there's a spot that meets who you are, the right role for you, then they're like, let's do it. Let's make a movie." So we went out and did some of that. I didn't do anything huge at the time, but I auditioned and had a fun time with it and took some classes. And so I'm thinking I might get back into that a little bit. I think I'm at a good point in it too. About 6 months ago or so, maybe longer, I actually signed up for an acting class here in the Bay Area, and I went to one of the classes, and the whole time I was there, I was just sitting there going, "Oh my God, I wish I was writing a book right now." And so that was like this moment where I was like, was that just in my youth and now I'm over that side of my life? I don't know. But fast forward to where I am right now, and I'm kind of getting a little antsy. Like I want to get outdoors. I wouldn't mind going and doing some auditions. I wouldn't mind, interacting with people again at some point. So I'm debating that. And maybe it was just the style that I was doing. It was a Meisner technique class, and I just don't think I like the whole idea of the Meisner technique. I don't enjoy it. And if I'm not enjoying it, like, yes, it might make me a better person, but I imagine there's a lot of ways out there for me to learn and improve my skill and craft that I enjoy. So why am I doing something that I don't enjoy, right?
Well, that's the same thing. Why are you going to write something that you don't enjoy, or why are you going to even write if you don't enjoy writing?
Yeah. So we'll see. It's something I'm going to explore. I feel like it's going to be fun because down there, it's all kind of part of the bigger picture, right? If I try some acting, and even if I don't like it, if I just do it for a few months or a year, it's going to make me a better writer. Same thing with any other aspect of the movie business. If I'm just networking and maybe nothing comes out of it on the screenwriting side or the acting side, who knows? They'll look at a book that I have on Amazon and be like, "Hey, I know you, and that book looks awesome. Let's make a movie out of it." Or or something else. I've heard about some guys we had on the podcast who were adapting screenplays that never got made into novels. And so, like that kind of opportunity could arise where they say, hey, we have a screenplay, can you write it as a novel? We'll pay you X amount, or random other things. Like here in the Bay Area, there's a lot of video game companies. And so recently somebody at a daycare was like, hey, do you want to write for this video game? And so I thought about it, and I don't know if I'll do it, we'll see. But these kind of opportunities just pop up, and if you're around where that kind of stuff exists, Hollywood, of course, then it's more likely versus if you live in Montana or something.
Yeah, Cleveland.
Yeah.
That's cool. So that's cool. You got like there's multiple ways it could go, and you could do a little bit in each and still like produce some content.
Yeah, and I'll still be doing novels regardless. Like even say all that stuff goes in crazy directions. I love novel writing. It's definitely one on the top of my passion project lists, fun things to do. But I wouldn't mind being in a situation where I feel less rushed, where I feel less need to get them done by a certain date, and just have fun with them and kind of spend 3 hours a day and not feel like, oh no, I didn't spend 8 hours on my novel today. That'd be a great feeling.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. Yeah.
So tell us about Shadow Mystic. What's the coolness there?
Yeah, so that's the fourth book in the Shadow Core series, which is, as I mentioned, it's part of that whole bigger universe, but I like to think it can stand on its own. I have noticed some readers get into it and are a little confused, because I do a lot of my books this way, where I start off in the action, and then I kind of fill it in as the backstory goes along. And I like the idea that Tolkien set up with the mountains out there, the mysterious mountains. And then he said something like, if you explain what's in the mountains, then you have to have more mysterious mountains. So there's always some mystery out there. Some readers seem to think that you should be describing every detail of every single mountain and going into all the lore of all the mountains. But I'm not that kind of writer.
No.
And that's how this starts off too. Like you start off and there's some stuff going on, and there's some hints that there have been things going on. And some of that's covered in the earlier series, the series that relate. Some of it's not. Some of it's just backstory stuff that I made up for the characters to have more of a world around them before you meet them. But anyway, so the Shadow Core series is about this girl, Sam, who gets picked up by this group, and she forms, or is part of forming, this team that's going to be like the intergalactic assassins going out there. When I first started thinking about it, I was saying it was Apocalypse Now meets Harry Potter. Didn't end up going that way exactly. But that's still, I think if you've read it and you have that in mind, you'll know what I'm talking about, especially in book one, because it follows this almost going down the river to find the bad guy, the guy you have to assassinate kind of story, except for it's in space, so it's not an actual river.
Right.
So it still kind of holds true. There's like a magical element. It's more like superpowers-ish in a way. And it has some game-lit elements, but it's not in a game, and it's not in that same way. There's leveling up and skill trees in a sci-fi way. Her suit is like this special metal that allows that to happen. Kind of like Spider-Man. In some of the newer Spider-Man movies, he was given a suit that wouldn't unlock certain skills for him until he was more advanced and knew how to use the current ones. And Tony had set that up for him, Tony Stark. A spoiler, I guess, but it's an old movie. So anyway, he had set that up for him so that as he grew into himself, he would be allowed to use more of the skills of that suit. Same concept. When I watched that movie, I was like, oh, they ripped me off.
I've had that moment.
Yeah. But I mean, I like that they did that, because then I have some way of explaining it to where people aren't like, what are you talking about? That's just weird game stuff. It doesn't make sense. Like, it's like you start Spider-Man. Come on. Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The Shadow Mystic is the fourth book in that, where all along there's been this this looming threat of another force about to come in and invade. And finally, in the fourth book, that does happen, although that's not the main story of the fourth book. It's a big part of it.
Okay. So is the fourth book the last one in the series?
I think so, in part because what I wanted to do there was set up that final invasion, and I wanted to show what could happen to her next. And she's going to appear in other books that are not in the Shadow Core series, and so I wanted to make sure that bridge was set. But also, I like 4-book series. If all of the books had sold, like $1 billion, then I'd probably say, oh, cool, I have to write book 5 and keep going with it. And I've enjoyed it, but I also don't mind. I'm the kind of writer who likes to just write like new random things, and when books are making money, of course, I'm not going to do too much of that because I have to listen to my wife telling me to pay rent. You know, once you go full time, that's one thing you have to think about. Is once you go full time as a writer, you have to still be able to pay your bills. And so what I try to do is the one for me, one for them type situation. And it's not always one for one exactly, but I try to do like 2 or 3 books that'll be for fun, and then like one book that'll pay the rent, and then hopefully the fun ones will also pay the rent, and then you can do sequels on those and expand out into all these different series. But I've also found that doing that, I tend to get too spread out, not for myself but for the readers, so that then the readers kind of get lost on what book they should be reading next, and then each book doesn't perform as well as it should. So the artist in me wins too often over the business person, and in some ways I need to probably slap myself and refocus at some point in my life. But it's just too fun to do what's fun. So
No, I totally get that, because I feel like I can't focus on one series at a time, because I'm working on my epic fantasy series, but I've got these little short stories that involve other characters and are eventually going to be folded into the main series.
Yeah.
But I've also got this high school young adult superpower series that I'm trying to work on, that I work on at night after I get home from work.
Yeah.
So it's like I want to do all these different things. It's like, okay, I can't just set this on a burner for like 6 years and not work on it. I got to work on it at some point. So
right. Or what's funny is if you don't know, but in theory, like that super powered one would be the one that would take off and suddenly make you be able to go full time and write a lot more of what you wanted. But you don't ever know which one that will be, and so you're kind of trying to do all of it, and that's the problem.
yeah, that's a problem. So I'm trying to keep it limited to those two, because I got so many other ideas. I'm sure we all do, but it's like I've thought about just like, okay, maybe I should just focus on the epic fantasy at least for 2 more books, and then I can do other stuff. But I'm not sure I can even do that. I have attention deficit disorder, so it's like everything's like
Sure. I'm there with you.
Yeah.
As long as the readers are happy. I've written like 1 or 2 books that I thought were going to be like this huge new universe, and then they sold like a 20th of what my other book sold. And so I'm like, well, obviously the readers don't care about that. Maybe 10 do. But I mean, if it's only 10 versus like 3,000 readers caring about it, then it seems like there's not a lot of reason to go and keep writing those other books, the book 2 or 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's always a struggle, because there's the other argument that's like, but if it's your story, then you got to tell it. But if nobody's going to listen to it, it's a lot harder to write, because you sit down to start writing and you go, nobody cares. And that's a weird pressure that I didn't used to deal with that, when I was just writing my passion projects and not selling anyway. Like my first whatever books, X number of books, didn't really sell. So it didn't really matter. And then you get to a certain point where a book does well, like one of my books hit 47 in the market on Amazon, and you're like, well, okay, that means that the next book has to do well, and the one after that. And then you come out with a book that doesn't sell at all, and you're like, oh, okay, nobody's going to read the book 2 if I do it. And so even though it's a passion project and you're doing it, I had this issue over Christmas, last Christmas. It took me like 2.5 months to write a book. Usually I do them a lot faster. But the whole time it was because there was that voice in my head. And I kept saying, I don't care, I'm pushing through. The book came out, nobody read it. And so now it's like, well, of course, I already knew that, but it's still deterring. And then now I know I want to write book 3. But I think I'm going to be smart finally. I'm not going to call it quits like some people do, because I hate that. But I'm going to put it on a side burner, and I'm going to say, okay, readers, when you guys have given me enough awesome sales to where I can just take a month and feel comfortable in paying the rent, then I'm going to write that book.
Right.
Yeah.
That's smart, because I don't think everyone should ever give up their passion projects. I mean, great writing comes out of great passion.
Yeah. And also, like we were talking about, you don't want to not pay rent, because then you have to go back and get a real job, and then you can't write half as many books as you want, and then you're going to lose out in the long run. So
right. Yeah, it's a hard balance.
Unfortunately. So, until those screenplays and acting gigs are paying the millions of dollars and covering rent and big fancy houses, and then I don't have to worry about it, right?
Yeah, there you go. Just write whatever you want, right? You can be a George R. Martin and just write one book every 6 years.
Right. Yeah, I'll never be that slow. Come on. Well, if my books are 15,000 or 1,500 pages, then maybe, I guess, I don't know. But my books tend to be more like 300 pages. I have a very like movie style thought process about the books, and also when it comes to me as a reader, I don't really like picking up a 1,500 page book unless it's by George R. Martin or Brandon Sanderson or maybe Scott Lynch. But otherwise, especially if it's somebody I don't know, or if it's somebody I just kind of like but I'm not sure, I want like a 300 page book, maybe 4 at max.
Yeah.
So when I write them, I'm like that too. So at the most I could see I might nowadays spend like 4 months on a book if I was going to like take my time with it and go back over it over and over and over again, and reread it. And I could see that 4 months. Yeah, that'd be fun.
4 months would be like a speed trip for me.
Yeah, but you're not full time, so there's that.
It's true, but I'm also writing epic fantasy, which is like 140,000 words per book.
Yeah,
so
exactly. I'm like more in I like 70,000, 70 or 80 at the most. More than that, I start feeling like this is too. I gotta cut something. This is too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, even with epic fantasy, my first book was it was confusing. I spent 6 years on my first book, and it was epic fantasy. And at one point, it was one book, and then I divided it into 2, and I divided it into 3, and then I went back to 2, and then I wrote a third. So it was, yeah, and I think I ended up splitting that one into like the first chunk was 80 or 90, and the second chunk was like 80, and then book 3 ended up being 70. Because at that point I had changed it to who I was as a writer, so I started to have that screenwriter mentality. So by book 3, it was already much more condensed and didn't take me 6 years to do.
Yeah, my first one took me 15 years to do.
Yeah.
And, but I wasn't trying to be a serious writer until like the last 2 years. I was like, okay, I gotta get this thing done.
Yeah. First I was exploring, and you're trying to figure out like, is this something you just want to try and have fun with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course, I picked the absolute hardest genre to get into with the longest books that are written, so that making a career off of it is going to take the longest of any author career.
Epic fantasy.
Epic fantasy, yeah, because the books are long. It takes you a long time to write. It takes a lot of money to edit.
Yeah.
And and it's everything I hear is like fantasy. Epic fantasy is one of the hardest genres to kick off a career in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done so well on it myself, so I don't know. But I feel like it's not that hard compared to literary or
literary. Yeah.
If we were going to try to write women's lit, that might be tough, But yeah.
Yeah. I don't. It's funny you say that. I actually have a Jane Austen book I plan on writing for my wife for our 25th anniversary.
Yeah, well, one of my so I went to Johns Hopkins for their master's in creative writing, and I focused on fiction. And my thesis, I guess, was a book that's kind of a literary, almost women's fiction book about a woman from Central Asia dealing with life and divorce in America while there's ethnic cleansing going against people back home. And so it's kind of like one of those kite runner women literary things. That was yeah. So totally different than what I'm writing nowadays. But
I was gonna say that's hard to imagine writing something like that.
I think it's a great book, but it's much more. The difference is it's a lot harder for people to jump into those for escapism, because that's not what it is. There's too much darkness, there's too much reality, there's too much actual emotions going on, versus a lot of these books are made more for the escapism options. A lot of the stuff I write nowadays, like the Shadowcore books, they're a lot more fun, punching, people high-fiving each other. It's just I don't even think there's a single high five in there, but you know what I mean. That idea where it's much more gung ho, let's go get them. Oh, we conquered, all right.
Yeah.
Kind of ridiculous in a fun way.
Yeah. No, that's why I write. I like escapism, but I also it's like it's therapy for me, so I get some of those angsty feelings out.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it transfers too much in my writing, so it's just like, and I get reviews that say there's too much angst in this. I don't really like this.
Yep.
It's like,
yeah. Yeah, a lot of the not review. So early on, I would be shipping my books to agents and whatnot, and I'd get some of that. So I wrote this teen series from a girl's perspective, and the odd remark I would get from a lot of them was like, "This is a little bit too much what a teenage girl would be going through. Like, it's too close to reality," which for me was weird because I'm not a teenage girl and I'm just having fun. but yeah, the lesson I took from that was probably more along the lines of it's too angsty. And so when I write stuff now, I try to think more about that. And people don't really like that angst thing. They want. I think there's a good interview that the guy who played Jamie, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, whatever. He was talking about his role in Jamie Lannister in Game of Thrones, and he was talking about projection. Like a lot of the viewers can project stuff onto you. So if you're doing a scene with a dragon, you can just stare at a dot and think, oh, there's a dot, there's a dot. And then the reader, in that case, the viewer is going to look at that actor and be thinking, oh, he's thinking this right now. He's very much thinking about his sister, or he's very, they'll put their own images in there. And I think that's something I try to do with my writing nowadays too, where yes, I get into the character's head, but in a very different way than I used to. And if I want angst there, I try to show more of what the character's looking at and what they're observing. And then the reader can infer whatever they want. And if they want to, they'll probably catch on what I'm saying, because if I'm sitting here describing the tree outside, like when I look at this tree right now, it's green. I see the light shining on the leaves and whatnot, but I could look right over there and I could see, the half-eaten acorn that's kind of moldy and black, and you can focus on that more and be real. Okay, this person's probably going through something right now, and based on what they've been going through, and then maybe have a couple sentences of what they're thinking, but not too much. Then the reader can fill in the blanks a little bit. And I'm much more of a fill in the blanks kind of writer nowadays, if that makes sense.
Well, that makes total sense. That's actually a really, really good idea, because I've struggled with the whole the reader identifying with the character,
Mm-hmm.
and not communicating enough what's in the character's head. But to do it that way, to like communicate it, but in a way that allows the reader to put in their own thoughts on the matter, it's just, I think that would draw them in even more.
Yeah, that, and another thing I like to do, and I've liked in the viewing perspective, was and what I talk about a lot is at Telltale, we did something called the campfire moments, where there's like a scene with Clementine on Walking Dead, and they're at a campfire, and that's when everybody starts opening up to each other. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the well-received scenes that everybody liked, because you're actually getting to know the characters. And that's something they talked about at Hopkins a lot too, but on a one-on-one basis, not one-on-one, on your own basis, where it's like that same idea. I might look at that half-eaten walnut, and suddenly I'm back in Kyrgyzstan, where I met this woman who's going through all this stuff, and I remember this story she told me. And so that's in the story. That's where I'm in the head, and I'm remembering the story she told me about how she was out in the field watching somebody get gunned down and all this stuff. And then my character, I start thinking, like I've never been through anything like that. How can I, relate this? How can I be so sad about this stupid situation in my life that's nothing in comparison to that? And that's kind of a cool moment for the character, because you as a reader are going, oh, okay, I see who this person is. I see that they're dealing with grief, but they're still on this level where they're able to see that it's nothing in comparison to these other people. And you start thinking of them as a three-dimensional kind of person. So I kind of think of that as its own, like a solo campfire moment, where you're looking at the campfire and you're thinking about some story that relates to the situation. And so you're not being like, oh man, I'm just pissed, oh, everything sucks, oh, my life is horrible. But you're thinking about things, and through that and through the story, that maybe that brings up some memory of your brother and how he used to burn your face half off, and that's why you're pissed at him if you're down. All this kind of stuff. That's what makes me relate to these characters, and that's what I like to see when I'm trying to get more depth out of them.
Okay, that's really cool. I'm so going to use that. Yeah, that's awesome. So, all right.
Everybody has their approach. It's just it's one thing I try to, because also one more thing on that is, when you do work with a lot of beginning writers, I think you can go one of two ways on these things. Like I think more times than not, you'll see the beginning writers will basically just describe everything. I mean, just say what's happening, and so you kind of feel like you're reading a cartoon or a comic book or something like that, because it's just like, and then this and then this and this and this, and you're like, okay, dude, calm down, give me a second, like I want to breathe, or I want to know what's going on with this character, that kind of thing. Or you see the opposite, where they're just kind of like describing all the feelings without letting us just see the feelings and be one with the character for a little bit. Yeah.
Be one with the character.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. I read a couple of your books. I read, oh man, it's been so long. I read your Epic Fantasy series, the first book,
Land of Gods,
the
Falls
Falls
of
Redemption.
Redemption. Yeah, I have a fourth book on
So
that one
I read.
right too.
I'm sorry, what?
I'll tell you
What's
about
that?
it later if you're curious. But yeah, I have a fourth book on that series too that I want to write someday. But it's in that situation where I know it wouldn't make any money, so I want to just wait till I have leeway on this. Yeah, till my readers give me a
Yeah, I
little
think
bit of rope.
yeah, I think I remember you saying that before. Maybe it was an interview. I can't remember. But yeah, I haven't read any of your more recent works, so I should. Oh no, I do have. I think I have the first in the Shadow Core series,
Hmm.
so
Tess Irondale
I should
read
read that.
Tess Irondale did the narration on it, and I was just listening to it like a week ago, or no, probably like 2 months ago because I was getting ready to write book 4, and I was like, she did a really good job. Yeah.
That's awesome. I can't wait to get mine in audio.
Yeah, it's fun, but it depends on the book. Like sometimes I've listened to some of these, uh, and you just listen to it and you're like, wow, I'm amazing. And other times you listen and you're like, okay, I see where I need work. Okay, and it's hard to tell if it's really you or if it's the narrator who's really bringing it to life, or like they're working with your mediocre prose but making it sound amazing, or vice versa. It's hard to
Yeah,
tell, but it's a lot of fun regardless.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So did you go? Do you go with Audible with your audiobooks, or do you like the 7 year exclusivity, or do you pay up front, or what's your process for that?
I do a lot through Podium, which goes
Oh,
through
okay.
Audible and is a exclusive, I believe. Then I've done a lot through ACX, and which is a 50-50 royalty share is the way I do it. I've never paid up front, but working with Michael Anderle, he's paid up front for Kate Red to do the Reclaiming Honor books, and she did amazing. She did amazing work. She had won some awards for like The Fault in Our Stars and some other great audiobooks, and I fell in love with her work when I listened to uh, I'm forgetting the name now, right? Risa something or other has a Delphi effect, I think it is, time travel series, and it's just so fun. And Kate did such an amazing job narrating it. I was like, can we please get her? And I think it's expensive, but he made it happen. And then he ended up hiring her for like 20 other books that they were doing under the LMBPN. So pretty exciting. Yeah. So I've basically only done it those ways. I worked with Tantor once, and I yeah, we haven't done it with Audible, as like Audible does their own separate thing too, kind of how Podium does, but just they cut out the middleman, I guess. They bring in
Right.
authors. So I haven't done that yet, and I haven't gone like traditional with audiobooks in any sense, other than like unless you count Podium. I don't know how that works, but we did have a series that got picked up by French publishers under Hachette, and that was interesting. But that was just for print books. Maybe they did ebooks too. I don't know. I forget.
One day you might come across your book in French and an audiobook and
Yeah.
like, that's your Shadow Core.
Yeah, yeah, because I don't know if audiobooks are included in that or in the contract or not. I was just like, give me some French money, I'll take it. Sweet.
Yeah, there you go. Get some French Deutsch marks or whatever they're called. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I mean, 'cause, yeah, I wouldn't say no if it was included. So hey, as long as they don't try to take my U.S. rights or my movie rights, then I'm good.
Yeah. So you're gonna try to get your stuff made into movies since you're doing that whole other thing, or or is it just gonna like something that if it happens, that's cool?
Yeah, I've optioned a couple of books at different times, and then I went and worked with Sean Platt at one point and adapted one of his books with him and David Wright, and that got optioned for pretty good money for the independent world. But it hasn't gotten made. That's how Hollywood works. so, so try. Yes, we were talking with the producer at one point for the Reclaiming Honor books that I was doing with Michael.
Yeah.
And that didn't go anywhere yet. So it's like all these things that Hollywood does, where it's like things start, and then there's like 20 million people who have to sign off on it along the way. So if all of them do, then yay. But if not, we'll see. But the thing is, most of my books, I have a few of them in screenplay format because I've adapted them, or some of them were screenplays first that I adapted into books later. But yeah, a lot of them are like. So the thing with Hollywood trying to break in is you want to get these contained, low budget, or if you can low budget, those kind of things are a lot easier to sell. And a lot of what I write is like,
Yeah.
big, crazy insanity.
Yeah.
Right now I have Project Destiny, which is one of my books that's in space, and it's a super soldier. It's kind of like the Bourne Identity, but on a space station. So it's
Oh, nice.
all on a space station, so it could be pretty easy to film. There's a lot of shooting and stuff like that, and not a super small cast, but it's if you just filmed it in like some warehouses and made it look cool, I'm sure it wouldn't be super expensive. So anyway, so I have that one that I'm actually just finished revising yesterday, and I'm going to try to send that out and see what happens. And then I have a couple others that I've done that are kind of that I could see being, in the 5 million range versus the 100 million range. So I'll try to see what I can do with those. But like Shadow Core, not likely. Yeah,
That's like
maybe
a
if
Star
I'm
Wars.
super rich and famous someday, then I can be like, hey, don't forget about that little one I did back then. And
There you go.
yeah,
Yeah.
fingers crossed. I might try to write more books that are marketable at some point. Like I think that's what I had in mind when I did Project Destiny. I was thinking, hey, this would be great if this could also be marketable as a screenplay someday. So I purposely didn't have huge spaceships and chases and things exploding and all that in space. But then book 2 gets a little more wild, and book 3 gets even a little more wild. But it's because at that point I'm like, well, if you like book 1, you made it into a movie, you can afford to, and it did well. You can afford to make the budget more for book 2 or movie 2 and movie 3. So I'll probably be more conscious about that, and then I got to start writing characters for myself to play too, right? Like
there you go. Yeah.
nerdy neighbor or nice friend at the bar.
Oh, you gotta do that totally awesome bounty hunter guy. Just like shows up, kills everybody.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna get super buff, of course, as soon as I move. Get some eye surgery, shave my head better, grow out the beard, and
yeah, and then talk with an accent.
Yeah, got to do all that stuff. Otherwise, I'll be stuck to a friendly guy at the bar for the rest of my life. We'll see.
Just be this whole drunk at the end of the I can't do it.
Yeah, that'll be my thing. I'll be like every movie, I'll have a friendly guy at a bar, and then every single movie I'll be credited as friendly guy at the bar. Wouldn't that be fun? I like it. And mark my words now, people. 20 years. Look back on this interview 20 years later and see what happened.
Yeah, people come up to you. I know you. You're that friendly guy at the bar. You're like, there's that split second where you're hoping, like, okay, she's gonna say author. It's like, no, friendly guy. Okay, yeah, okay.
Sure. That'd be great. Anyway, that's the dream. That's the dream.
Yeah, that's the dream.
I mean, I don't have dreams or like aspirations of trying to become like an action star or a lead of a movie. Even I don't even think I'd want it because of the time, the commitments, and everything, and away from the family. So like that's my goal. I want to go and I want to do like day parts on films and TV shows, just like day player. Just walk in there, do 3 or 4 lines, maybe have like a whole 3-episode thing where I have to work for like a week, but then I'm done with it. That's a good goal. Not go crazy. Make like a few $100,000 a year from it, but nothing insane.
Hey, that's awesome. I think that's cool. I'd love to do something like that.
Yeah.
I remember they had the open casting call when they were for The Last Jedi when they were filming it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, hey, you know what? I should totally like try to get into this.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, if it was just you and me, I would say go for it. But we have kids and we have to uproot our whole family. If you got it, we have to move out to California. I'm like, oh yeah.
Well, this is a debate. Well, so the one thing that's nice about being a full-time novelist is in theory you could have time for that stuff and wouldn't kill your income. And then if you land the job, of course, you get paid nice. So we've been debating that, even though we're not at that point right now, it's still like, should I even bother pursuing it because we have the family and I'm not the kind of person who's okay with being gone all the time and everything.
Right.
But then if you think about it, you're like, well, you do 1 or 2 good things and you're kind of set. You can, if you land the right role, like that's tough because I don't want to land a big role. But if there was something that only required 1 year of sacrifices so that the next 10 years of your life are that much better, we might. We'll see.
Yeah.
Tackle it at the time, I guess.
Yeah. It's a cool, endeavor. I mean, I've heard from multiple authors that, pursuing other things other than writing and having multiple streams of income is really a path that every author needs to consider.
Yeah.
Probably not just because of the income and the stability of the income, but also because, like you were saying, about just getting burnt out on one thing, doing one thing the whole time and not, exploring other stuff.
Yeah, and making you a better writer. I feel like anybody who, like, you meet these writers who don't watch movies or don't read books or don't do anything, and they just write books all day. And I'm like, how good are your stories? How good are they going to be in 2 years from now when you still haven't done anything and you're just trying to come up with new material? Yeah, I think it's good to live life.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And definitely spend time with your family, because that's just useless not to.
Yeah, we're doing this new thing where instead of story time at nighttime, because we were reading books and then they started wanting me to make up stories. And then as of like 2 nights ago, we started doing an improvised bedtime story time Dungeons and Dragons session. So basically, I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old, so she's not ready for it yet. But the 4-year-old and the 6-year-old are loving it. So they're level 3 right now. He's a warrior, human warrior, and she's like an elf witch. And it's just, we're having fun with it, and like we just make it up as we go. And so I'm playing DM slash one of the characters, and we're just having a lot of fun. They destroyed a mummy, like something or other 2 nights ago, and then the night before that it was a skeleton king, and then they each got some new enchanted weapons. So we're having a lot of fun with this like storytelling with the kids thing. So. And it's great because I'm sure it's creating some new ideas in my head and making me think about story in a different way than I normally would. And yeah, family can help in that way too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hadn't even thought about that.
Super fun, nerdy stuff.
Yeah. I used to play D&D, so I could totally see that happening.
Yeah, do it. The kids love it. And you're training your kids to be nerdy, so that's always a good thing.
Yeah. Oh, they're all in the video games and Star Wars. Any chance I get to do Star Wars with them, I totally take them up on that. Star Wars superheroes.
Yeah, I definitely want my kids to be nerdy because it's the nerdy ones that come out of high school with good jobs and everything. So I'm like, don't play sports. Don't talk to nice, cool people. Be a nerd. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Play sports. You make $1 million and then you blow out your knees and then you're done. So
yeah. I actually have hip problems from things, so I'm always like, I like the idea of them being able to practice what they want to when they're kids, but I'm like, it's okay if you don't go pro.
Yeah,
you don't need to feel like you have to do that much. Like, maybe football you can like, whatever. You don't want to get head injuries and blown out knees and yeah,
not good. So what's next on the horizon for you? What's what as far as writing goes? What are you working on next?
So we're about to launch. What's that?
Actually, I meant to ask you. Shadow Mystic, that just came out?
Yeah. Like I don't know, 2 weeks ago, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So you're gonna go buy it right now.
Yeah, I mean, if people, but there's the first 3 books in the series, so
yeah.
I actually have one for 99 cents, probably for another couple of weeks, maybe longer. We'll see. So if people want a starting point, there's that. But, yeah, and then just buy all of them is always good, of course, too. But I like people to read it and be happy with what they got. So it's a certain style. I don't swear a lot in those books. I think there might be like 3 or 4 swear words. I was at this weird point where I usually write very clean as Justin Sloan until I started writing with Anderley, and his like readership requires 20 minimum F words per book. Not exactly. Just joking. But they do love it. They love the dirty language. And so once I started doing that, I realized that those books have to have it. Like you can't just write those as clean, normal style me books. And so books since I started doing that have had a little bit more leeway. Like Project Destiny, because they're Marines, I wanted to, portray them as real Marines. Not dropping F-bombs every few sentences, but if something blows up in their face, they're going to say, whatever they're going to say.
Yeah.
So same with this. It's like 3 or 4 swear words in like a book, maybe. But some people haven't liked that. Like one reader wrote me and she's like, what is this? There's like all this. It's like for teenagers, and it kind of is because the main protagonist is a 17-year-old girl. So I mean, it's multiple POV, but still, she's obviously the main one, and you get that feeling. And then since it's clean language anyway, and there's no, intimate moments on the screen, or for her at all, really early on, you get that sense. So my point being, it's for certain readerships, and it's not super space marine. It's none of that. It's more about the characters than blowing stuff up, I think. Anyway, yes.
That's plenty fun.
Yeah, it's for the right readership. When the right reader loves it, they love it. And then when you try marketing, that's the weird thing about this industry that we're in, where we try to get all these author shares from readers because we're like, oh, those books look similar. But like Galaxy's Edge is awesome. It's not exact overlap with my readership, probably, because mine is much more like superpowers and these 17-year-old girl and the things that's going on with her, and versus a bunch of military guys dealing with like some lieutenant or captain or whatever who's a complete stupid head. Trying to be clean for your podcast.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So like it's gonna be some overlap maybe, but it's probably like those circles where it has like a little bit of that overlap, but not a whole lot. And so what I'm saying is, when you get author shares, because you think, oh, that's probably a readership that might like it, it's a good learning opportunity, because then you start hearing from them and you're like, oh, I was trying to market it as Space Marine, and even though it has that, that's not who I should really be marketing it toward.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, and it's something that a lot of more beginner writers will email everybody and be like, can you share my book? Can you share my book? Can you share my book? And sometimes I finally learned how to say no, because it would be stupid for me to share your book, because my readership would be the wrong readership. And they'd either be annoyed at you or annoyed at me, or they'd give you bad reviews, or it would mess up your algorithms or what have you.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to keep that in mind.
Yeah. It's a good lesson. Like early on, I wrote a book called Hounds of God, which was a book about a werewolf woman who is searching for a cure, kind of, and she's different from other werewolves because she can change whenever she wants to, and all these other things. And I was like, well, I just wanted to write a book. It was a screenplay first, and I was like, I just want to write this as a book, and I'm gonna try to market it. And so I reached out to all these people who were like, oh yes, that's urban fantasy. It's urban fantasy. But when I had urban fantasy people share it, it just wasn't hitting the mark. And I later realized why, because the book is more of a thriller, and my style of writing was more thriller-esque. So basically, supernatural thriller or something like that probably would have been a much smarter route to go as far as my cross-marketing possibilities. But yeah, good lesson learned that I wish I'd learned a long time ago.
Well, you're passing it on, so there you go.
Hey, yeah. And it's all about branding and finding your market and all that. And sometimes it takes time to do. But it's great if you can find the right person who can help you and just look at your books and be like, dude, what are you doing? That's not what you are. You're and listen, because a lot of people don't want to listen to that. And they were like, no, it's good. It's good. And then you see no sales, or you see bad reviews come in, and you're like, oh, okay. Now I listen. Yeah.
Yeah. I try not to be that guy.
Yeah.
So as I was saying before I so really interrupted myself, what's coming down the pipe for you as far as writing?
Yeah. So we have a new author who has written some other stuff in traditional world only, and now she's coming over to do some self-publishing. And so she's going to write. She has 2 book series coming out under the Epicurean series, the universe, and hers are pretty exciting. We're basically talking about them as like Firefly meets Guardians, that kind of story, where it's like a sci-fi heist story. It's got a little Indiana Jones feel to it, but it's
nice.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. So we're excited about that. And each book is like 130,000 words or something. The first one is, and then the second's, I think it's gonna be pretty long too. So it's legit. It's not like these little thriller things that I'm throwing around, but it's a legit, has that feel, the exciting pace, and it's a thriller / heist story. And I think it'll be fun. So fingers crossed. That's probably going to be, what are we at now? I think we're looking at June 18th for that, for first one. Actually, I think I put it up on pre-order already, but I'm not supposed to tell anybody, so don't look at it.
Yeah.
And then the idea we put it up there is so that we could link, because we're redoing Syndicate Wars Book 1, and we're putting that up for June 1st, which is a couple days away. Pretty exciting. And we're doing Book 2, but we're trying to get the cover for that, and we're actually doing a little bit of rebranding the internal stuff as well, taking some things out and changing some things around and whatnot. So that'll be fun. And then we have, I don't know how much specifics I should go into these, but they're both pretty exciting. I'll just say one of these new series I have coming out soon with a co-author is going to be a lot of fun. It's very much space superhero, sci-fi superhero type stuff, like Shadow Core, but without the gamelet elements. And one of them has, let's see, I won't say it yet. I'll just say stay tuned to see what happens on that. And on the other one, it ties back into kind of 90s, what I loved about some of these 90s cartoons. But it's the same idea with like space marines with superpowers. And so I think it'll be a lot of fun. If there are readers out there like me who enjoyed the 90s and want more space marines, but with 90s cartoon elements, as ridiculous as that sounds, it's going to be awesome. So those are both with co-authors though. And then I want to do books 2 and 3 in the Ascension Gate series, which I did book 1 of called Starforged. Haven't gotten to yet because of what we were talking about earlier, where the dilemma of how much do you focus on, doing a series. If book 1 actually did okay, but it wasn't up to how well Shadowcore did. And so at the time I was kind of like, am I discouraged? Am I not discouraged? I don't know. So I just waited so long on it that at this point I'm kind of like, maybe I should think of it as a passion project. Because if it's been more than a couple months after book 1 came out, finding the readership, the readers have moved on basically. Other authors have come along and been like, look at this shiny object. And by the time they look back at your book, they're gonna be like, I remember I read that, but I don't remember what it was. So there's this whole, so I think I'll do at that point, at some point, is write books 2 and 3 and then put book 1 at 99 cents and then try to market all 3 of them at once. Like put book 2 and 3 out there at the exact same time and see what happens. But who knows? So that's what I'm looking at going forward. And I have a bunch of stories. Like I'd love to do book 4 in the Falls of Redemption series at some point. I have like 20,000 words written and I have a cover for it. So it's not like I have much to do based off, if I'm only doing like 70,000 words, it's not like it would be that big of a time investment, but it's still finding that time amongst all the other projects. And I have a pen name thing going on that I won't mention here, but it's fun. It's basically Space Heroes with some other things going on. And then we had a pen name going for called Jesse Nethermind, but we had to stop that. It was Minecraft books, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah, but finally, so Mojang was cool with that stuff when they were in charge, and they had this whole thing on their web where they were like, as long as it says unofficial Minecraft and you don't get too Minecrafty, we're okay. But then Microsoft bought them and decided to be a little more stringent with the rules as far as copyright and whatnot. And so even if it had like any relation to Minecraft, they started emailing authors. And some authors haven't taken them off and some don't care. But we were like, okay, let's take that off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rebrand that so that the story is not Minecraft, but still is the same story kind of. And we're going to put some new things in there as well and come out with that at some point. Maybe under my Justin M. Sloan name, which is where it's, I write under Justin Sloan usually. But I've taken all my kids' books and whatnot and put Justin M. Sloan just so that it's a different author name on Amazon for algorithm purposes, because Amazon looks at your algorithm and all that stuff. So maybe under that name, we'll see.
That's cool. Okay, well yes, Glenn. You're scared again. You want to say hi to Mr. Sloan? Say hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay, well, you just stay in here. Dad will be done in a minute, okay? Okay.
They're playing something else.
Okay, let me finish talking to Mr. Sloan, okay? Okay. You can stay in here. You don't have to go out there. She comes in like almost every single time I do this, which is funny.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, so we're coming up on the end of the hour, so why don't you tell people where they can find you online?
Sure, yeah. I got my website, justinsloanauthor.com. Haven't been using it as much as I used to, but I think I've started getting into it a little bit more again. So you can check out stuff there. And then Amazon. I don't really use Twitter as much either. So mostly just find the books on Amazon. But yeah, Justin Sloan Author. Or I have a new Facebook group that I started for the fans. I think it's something like Author Justin Sloan's Awesome Group of Awesome People. I don't know, something like that. Secret group of awesome people, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, awesome. It's not that secret. It's I used to have another one, but it wasn't my real. It was like the Sloan Zone or something silly. But then I was realizing if people want to search for Justin Sloan, that doesn't make sense. So I rebranded and started a new group. So if people want to join that and come chat about books, and I do freebies on there and giveaways sometimes, or if I have some signed books to give away or something, that's where it happens. So yeah, happy to see you there.
Sweet, yeah, everybody check it out. And Justin, thanks for coming on. It's been an awesome time hearing from you and hearing about where your life's going and stuff. So for everyone else, thanks for tuning in, and leave your comments in the below. Justin's links, minus the Facebook group, are in the description below. So definitely check out his books. Check out Shadow Core, just came out, and check out his other stuff that's not doing so well, so we can start writing that again.
Yeah. Got to make it happen.
Yep, gotta make it happen. And until next time, everyone, keep writing and keep reading.